This is a very weird angle, but I moved my room around and now my bookshelf is here where the light shines on me so I can actually film in front of my bookshelf, but it's a really strange angle to be filming here because I feel like I want my whole bookshelf to be in, but then I'm sitting just at the edge of the camera's view, which I don't like. But anyway, I'm gonna do that for now. Hello and welcome to this video. As you can tell by the title, I'm gonna be listing off my TBR for you for the next little while. But first, I want to do my March wrap-up. It's a very short one because I only read 2 books in March. I thought I was gonna read more, but I predicted this myself. I did. And that will be my 5 books that I wanted to read this month, and maybe I can even read more than that. I usually say that, and then after the time I've said, oh, maybe I can actually read more books than I wanted to read, I usually end up stopping reading. So, yes, I know myself too well, and I knew that I wouldn't finish reading any of the other books that I was busy reading during March, but I did read 2 books, and I kind of liked them. The first book I read and finished was The Promise by Damon Galgut. I don't have a copy of it because I borrowed the copy that I read from the bookshop that I work at. I really enjoyed the book. I said this I think I read it in a reading vlog, and I said this before, but it's a really great book. It's really well written. It's a really tragic story, but it's very interesting. So if you are interested in reading a little bit more about apartheid South Africa, or a perspective from that time, then pick that book up. And even if you don't really care about that, it's still a really interesting book and a great read. Then the next book I read was Oligarchy by Scarlett. This book, if I ever do an unhaul, I'm probably going to unhaul this book because I really... Did I even underline anything in this book? No. I did not annotate this book at all. It's a very strange book. It's about a Russian oligarch's daughter who gets sent to this English boarding school because, I don't know, she has never even actually met her father. She used to live with her mother, but then her dad comes back into her life and then sends her off to an English boarding school. And everybody there is obsessed with their own body image, and basically everybody has an eating disorder. And it's a very strange book. It's very like being thrown into a teenager's mind and you have no way to escape. I did read it in a day and a half, so it is, you know, a page turner. You kind of want to know what's going to happen next, but also, will I ever read it again? Probably not. So, yes, there's my March wrap-up. I did kind of read 2 more books in March, but I didn't finish them, so I'm still busy reading Far From the Madding Crowd. Wow, this is a great shot. And then I've continued reading Quiet by Susan Cain as well. I'm on page 126 of Quiet, in the middle of some random chapter, and then I'm on page 156 in Far From the Madding Crowd, which is chapter 21. So I've made some progress. These are going very slowly. I will finish them at some point, but anyway, I then have read in April. It's only the 4th of April today. I've already read 1 book. I'm very proud of myself. I read The Method, which was actually on my March TBR, but I didn't get to it in March, but I'm now getting to it in April. And as you can see by all of my annotations, I loved this book. I gave it a 5-star rating. It is so good. A little bit confusing, but it's so well written and it's a great story. It kind of reminded me a little bit of 1984, so it's like a modern version of 1984, or a futuristic version of 1984 for us again. And if you're into dystopian, sci-fi, futuristic kind of stuff, I highly recommend this one. Please pick it up. Even if you're not interested in that kind of stuff, it might still intrigue you. It's a very good book. Now, moving on to my March TBR. I mean my April TBR. My April and May TBR. I couldn't decide which books I wanted to read next, even though I'm still technically reading 2 books. So I had the idea to ask my friends to tell me which books to read. So I counted all of the unread books on my bookshelf and then sent them a message saying, please select a book, or no, please select a number between 1 and 87, because I have 87 unread books on my bookshelf, excluding the 2 that I'm currently reading. And then they each chose a number, and I'm going to read you the names of those corresponding numbers, and that will be my April/May TBR. So I asked 4 friends and my sister. And the first one that I got is book number 45, which is a double life by, I almost said Charles Burton, no, by Sarah Burton, a biography of Charles and Mary Lamb. Now, Charles and Mary Lamb lived in the early 1900s, late 1800s, I think, and they kind of were like con artists. They presented themselves as one thing to a certain amount of people and then as something else to other people. I don't really know that much about them, but when I picked this book up, I read the back and I thought it would be very interesting, which is why it landed on my bookshelf. So that's my first book that I'm going to be reading. Well, I don't know if I'm going to read these in the order that I'm telling you them, but anyway, the next book I got was number 23, which is One Day by David Nicholls. And when I counted the books and I realized that my friend chose this book, I was kind of disappointed because I don't know if I actually even want to read this book, to be honest. But I've heard that it's a good book. I think I've seen the movie, but like a long time ago. And it's on my bookshelf, so it was picked, so I kind of have to read it. I'm sure I will enjoy it, but, you know, you never know. I don't have anything else to tell you. I feel like most people know what One Day is about. Then my sister chose book number 54, which is The Susan Effect by Peter, that last name. I'm pretty sure he's, I almost said Swedish. And I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name because I will butcher it. The byline on this book says, "You'll tell her your darkest secrets." Now, I got this book, I think, for my 20th birthday. So that was 3 years ago. And I still haven't read it. So it's now time. Susan Svensson has an unusual talent. She's an expert in finding out secrets. People feel oddly compelled to confide in her and unwittingly confess their innermost thoughts. That sounds like people with me. Her whole life she has exploited this talent. Okay, I've not done that. But now her family is in jeopardy and there is a prison sentence hanging over her head. Then Susan gets a timely offer from a former government official. Use her power one more time and have all charges dropped. To get back her life, she must track down the last surviving member of a secret think tank, the Future Committee, and find out the details in their mysterious final report. But there are some powerful people determined that the report is never revealed. Well, this sounds intriguing. I feel like this is probably going to be one of the first books I read this month. Well, in the next 2 months' time. Then my next friend picked Scratch, number 14, book 14, which is Scratch, compiled by Manjula Martin. It is basically a bunch of essays that writers wrote about writing and about maybe their lives and how they got into writing and all that kind of stuff. And to be honest, I was most excited that this book got chosen. Out of all of the books that got chosen, I was most excited for this one because, I don't know, this was the one that intrigued me the most. And then the last friend, which I can blame him for this, but also I knew he would do something like this. I knew that he would either choose number 1 or like number 87. He chose number 86, which left me needing to read The Nature Notes of an Edwardian Lady. And I was actually wondering whether I should include these last 2 books, because they're kind of coffee table books that you don't read in one sitting, you read them over time. So this one is Eminent Victorian Women, and this is The Nature Notes of an Edwardian Lady. But now it has been chosen because I did decide to include it on my list. And so now I have to read it. Which, I mean, I'm not angry about, but, oh, well, actually, this is like mostly just poetry, to be honest. Why is it not in my poetry section? Because it's such a large book. But it's got pictures, paintings, drawings, and poetry, and nature notes. So I feel like this might actually be a nice... Oh, it's also got diary entries. On June 1st, the diary entry reads, "Fine, bright day." I feel like I'm going to start writing a diary like that, because I don't have the capacity to write long diary entries, because I feel like my life is very boring and I don't have anything to write about until I do, and then when I do, I don't write things down because I'm like, this is too much to write down. Anyway, so that was a fun exercise. I might actually do this again in the future, and get my friends to pick more books for me to read. But yes, so this is going to be difficult to pile them up in a nice pile. There we go. Here's my April TBR pile. Thank you, friends, for picking my books that I'm going to be reading next. I am kind of excited about some of them. Apprehensive about some of the others, but I'm sure I will enjoy them all in the end. And then at some point I will also get around to finishing these 2 books. Don't you worry. And when I do, I will tell you about it. But yes, so this is kind of my TBR for the next 2 months. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more bookish content from me, you can subscribe. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you again next week with another video. Bye.